popped in right at the last second. All right, welcome to episode 21 of the Ramen Podcast. Tonight we are going to talk to atheists south of the Mason-Dixon and get the idea of how it is to be an out atheist in the South. We have Texas, we will have Mississippi, we have North Carolina and Georgia represented, and of course I'm in Maryland, so I guess that's got south of the Mason-Dixon. As we were saying in the pre-show, we are considered south by the Northerners and north by the Southerners. So with me tonight, I have Alix Jules, Gene Elliot, Johnny Brotherton, Shane Thrapp, and we will have Neil Carter. I'll give them each a little bit of time to introduce themselves. But Shane is the president of FACT, Forsyth Area Critical Thinkers. He's also currently working with American Atheist Alliance to work on their conference. We will have Mississippi, we have North Carolina, and Georgia represented. And of course, I'm in Maryland. That's me. So, boom. And he's working on the American Atheist Alliance Conference 2015 in Atlanta, Georgia, October 15th through 18th. Gene is known as Wyatt Mathers from the Atheist Avengers podcast. Johnny is a lot of things. He is the head honcho for atheist analysis. He's the creator of Secular Syndicate, the head honcho of Grilling with Atheists, and a speaker for the Secular Student Alliance Speakers Bureau. And Alix is the, let me see if I get this right, since Alix just popped in. He is the head of the Houston, help me out, Alix. I know you're the boss of the Houston group, but I can't think of where you're at.
I'm in Dallas, so it's
Dallas. Dang, got that wrong. Texas, anyway.
Yeah, Texas.
So
close enough.
I'm glad you guys all showed up. It was last and second. I told all these guys about maybe an hour and a half ago that we'd be doing this. I'm glad you guys all showed up. So the subject at hand is atheism in the South. Tell us, we'll start with Alix. Alix, I'm sure you've lived in different places, or you certainly have visited different places in the country. What is the key thing that makes being an atheist in the South different than, say, anywhere else?
The big thing is just being an atheist. Quite honestly, that is that's very anomalous. I also happen to be black, so I'm a black atheist in the South, which is equally as anomalous.
Triple whammy.
Yeah, big time, big time. The reality is people just assume that you're not, right? They assume that you're Christian for the most part. I always feel bad for my Muslim friends because when they say that they're Muslim, there's almost always a different connotation that goes with it. So they tend to get some of the same looks that I do when I say I'm an atheist. It's actually interesting. Over the last few years, it's gone from you're an atheist to when I do introduce myself as an atheist, it's like, well, at least he's not Muslim. I was like, ooh, well, I don't know about that, but
that's not better.
Right. So there's definitely been a shift, but I've been out in the South for a fairly long time. I've been here for about 7 years. I'm originally from New York, the Northeast, where it's not that big of a deal, but where you have so much history and so much expectation to Bible, God, and country, where everything is red, white, blue, and then the Bible, or actually the other way around. It can be a little overwhelming, especially for people that just aren't used to it. And I came from a religious background, but even comparing my religious background, growing up in New York in a religious and very strict religious black family to coming to the South, it's different. It's definitely different.
Yeah, I grew up in the most north of any of us. I grew up in the northern part of Michigan, and despite being in a more liberal state, I still grew up in a very conservative area, but nothing like the South. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like down there with the overwhelming majority of very vocal religious people. Gene and Shane, tell us about North Carolina. I know that you guys have a very active secular community in the Carolinas. You guys have a good conference scene down there. But I mean, do you still feel the battle drums of the Southern Bible Belt as much as some of the other places in the South?
Absolutely, we do. But I think I'm a bit surprised at how quickly we're gaining acceptance. There's still a long way to go. Don't get me wrong, but I think that the positive things that that my group and Shane's group and the Triangle Free Thought, the positive things that we've been involved with has actually given us a positive face where people are not considering us the devil-worshipping night creatures that we once were. So getting out and doing good things is helping us out, absolutely.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we've really been pushing. In fact, we still want to sit here and we want to fight for separation of church and state. We want to improve education and things like that. But we at the same time we also push our members to be volunteering in their local organizations in their areas, SciWorks, different homeless shelters and things like that. So getting out there and really showing that we are willing to do just as many good works as the theistic crowd really started turning the tide around for a lot of us. And just being out in general is actually turned the tide, because when people start learning that you're an atheist and they've known you for a while, and they're like, oh, well, you're not as bad as I thought you were going to be. I guess, like, it's like they just immediately assume, like, are you going to start eating the children? Do I need to hide my child? And they don't. But they've known you long enough that they don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, I think we've all had that moment, or probably have it all the time, where somebody finds out you're an atheist and they're just floored by, oh, you're not a marauder. Basically they just are just blown away by the idea that you're as nice as you are, I think. Johnny, we were just talking about getting out and doing things in the community. Tell us a little bit about the grilling with atheists that you guys did, and how that came to be, and how much of a success it certainly was.
Well, thank you, Mark. Absolutely. Grilling with Atheists was an idea that we had. We wanted to have something that we could give back to the community and put a positive face on atheism. At the time, we had a show that we were doing called Atheist Analysis. It's still on today. And that show, in the earlier days, was a little bit aggressive towards religion. And we felt like if we're going to be aggressive towards religion and kind of put that information or that content out there, we might need another side of that, a kind of a nicer side, to put a positive face on atheism. So we tossed around several ideas of what could we do to make a difference in the community and do something local. And we thought, we couldn't find a better way to do that than working directly with homeless people. Those are the individuals that are most down on their luck. When we go to them and we can help them out, a lot of these individuals are kind of a close-knit community, being in the homeless community like that. They're not going to get out there and spread the word that we're great people or anything like that. We just want an opportunity to have that personal connection with people. But in thinking about atheism, and maybe this is something that's unique to me, but I felt when I came out of religion and came into the secular community that these guys were all pretty cool people. There's a lot of really great personalities in here. You have scientists like Lawrence Krauss. You have people like Richard Dawkins. You have a really great crowd. It's almost a party when you finally get out of Christianity or get out of religion and come to reason within the secular communities. I felt if we're going to make a difference and we're going to reach out to these individuals here in Atlanta, the homeless community, we're going to do something kind of cool, if that makes sense. We're not just going to bring a tomato soup and a grilled cheese sandwich and call it a day. We really want to take care of them, show them that we love them, and have a good time while we're doing it, and put a positive face on atheists. So that's where Grilling with Atheists was born. Mark, what we did is we raised some funds, and Be Secular, you guys
were actually... Stop you right there. I do want to hear more about this, but your mic is crackling a little bit.
Oh, I apologize.
No, go ahead and tweak it a little bit. I know that when I first heard about the Grilling with Atheists thing, I know that Shannon and I reached out to you, and we asked, we want to be a part of it, we want to do our own Grilling with Atheists kind of under your banner here. Thought it was an awesome idea. We're still going to do that. And I guess you have, I want to tell me a little bit more about it, but I do want to hear about your plans to kind of move it around the country too. So go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Am I a little bit better on the audio? I apologize about that. Fantastic. So I'll answer the latter question first. Our next goals are Michigan, right in Grand Rapids, and our co-host, Christopher Tanner, he hosts a show on Wednesdays and Sundays with me as well. And we're going to be going to Grand Rapids, Michigan. We also have a plan to reach out to Indiana and do it in Indiana. We do have funding, but we're waiting a little bit later in the year for an event up in Oregon, of all places. It's kind of a little bit out there. But this is Grilling with Atheists. We started as something that was just going to be a one-time event here locally. And the response we received from volunteers and those wanting to get involved was so exciting. They really liked this idea of doing something fun and reaching out to somebody, having this philanthropy event to put a positive name on atheism. And that's what spurred the interest to bring it to other cities as well. So we do not have a date set just yet for Michigan and Indiana, but we have already started our funding for that, and we also have some of our funds for Secular Syndicate and Atheist Analysis that will allow us to host these events and give back. A quick summary on the event. We ended up grilling out hot dogs, burgers. They got granola bars, chips. We talked to a dietitian. They said that they need obviously water, but they also mentioned fruit cups and things like that. So we added in some kind of the health foods that you would see in a snack. I think there was Rice Krispies and stuff there. And this was enough for them to have a healthy, full, balanced meal at the Grilling with Atheists event, but also have some snacks that they could take with them after the fact. And it was amazing.
Free, right?
Pardon?
Everything was free, and how did you get the money to do all this?
Absolutely. We started off with a couple of things. We ran a GoFundMe page, and we asked some of the businesses that are around the area, the secular businesses and atheist organizations, if they would be interested in kind of sponsoring the event and helping us out with that, whether it was through a financial donation to support us to do this, or if it was through a product that they might give to us and then we could give away as a reward. We had Skeptic's Annotated Bible. We had Joey Lee Kirkham with Bedtime Bible Stories. Of course, Be Secular. We ended up putting in some Grilling with Atheist aprons, some Atheist Analysis shirts. And between all of that, the funding that we raised from that, for those that just wanted to give to a great cause, and then also the secular businesses and organizations that are getting involved, we were able to host the event, and it was fantastic, Mark. We had over 500 people that day.
How was the feedback from the community? Did you have anybody that stopped by and saw it, that didn't know what was going on, asked questions? I mean, Atlanta is liberal for the South, but it's still in the South, so I'm curious as how the community reacted.
And Mark, this is something that's been interesting to me. There's really a split distinction between two types of people that are not atheists or not secular individuals here, the religious folk. And that's those that have never heard of what an atheist is because they're so rare around here, or those that have extremely bad taste in their mouth about what an atheist is for whatever reason, because they've maybe been taught that way, or their parents had told them, oh, that's somebody that doesn't believe in God, they're horrible people, the stigma that's attached to atheists. But so when we had this event, the response that we received from a lot of these guys was, what's an atheist? And this was for me a shock at first, Mark, because I was under the impression that everybody at least knew what an atheist was, that there was people out there that didn't believe in the existence of a deity. But a lot of these individuals were not even familiar with the idea that you could not believe in the existence of God. So it did open up some great discussions. Some of them were, we actually had an apron that we had everybody sign, and that's hanging out over there somewhere. We wanted to use that for a later event, so we could go back. But a lot of them wrote Bible verses on the apron and things like that. So they were, kind of to maybe proselytize back to us towards a little bit. But the response was split right in the middle between those who didn't know and those that had a bad taste in their mouth. So either way, our response to come out and give them a full balanced meal and to take care of them addresses both of those issues. You know, whether they've never heard of an atheist and this is their first impression of what somebody is like without religion, I would say we left a pretty damn good impression on them for taking good care of them and giving them a meal and having a great time. For those that had a bad taste in their mouth, they had to kind of balance the idea of, is this really a bad, are these bad people, or is this, you know, this is their experience with an actual atheist, and it seems to be a pretty good experience. They seem like pretty cool people. So I think we were able to reduce that stigma throughout the event, get rid of some of those first impressions, that stigma against atheists, and the overall response was incredibly thankful and positive towards what we were doing for the homeless here in Atlanta.
Yeah, I think that as we talked about, you know, getting out and doing things without any kind of ulterior motive, which is one of the things that's hard for some of us to deal with about when religious groups do charitable events. Some of them do go out and do great things without the underlying current of, oh, and here's a Bible. But doing that as atheists and doing that as secular humanists, it's good to be able to do it with all the ulterior motive. And then you get to conferences, and you have a lot of conferences, and we have conferences in the South. Gene, you were just heading up the planning committee and the organizational committee for ReasonCon in North Carolina. How did the community, the media, the surrounding area help, or how did they really react to the planning and the execution for ReasonCon?
Well, I think ultimately everything that we're talking about here goes together, because if you don't somehow start building the community that's willing to get up and stand up and go out and do these things, like the Grilling with Atheists, or there's a simple thing that we do here in Hickory. We have a local Mellow Mushroom. I don't know how spread that chain is, but it's a pizza place for people who don't know. And they do trivia every Tuesday night. And the prizes for the trivia is gift cards to the Mellow Mushroom. And so we go as a group and we go play trivia, and a lot of times we win the gift cards, and we take those and donate them to the local soup kitchen. They use them for prizes for their bingo night. So it's just those little things, and as we get out and we do those things and we have conferences. Yeah, I just done ReasonCon here in Hickory. It was the second year we did ReasonCon, and it was a great success. We look forward to doing it again. And Mark, just wanted to say again, thank you for being a sponsor. You guys.
It was the least we could do, since we couldn't get down there. I know Shannon came with Be Secular, but as I try to always say, that Be Secular and the Ramen podcast are only related because I'm part of both of them.
Well,
not affiliated at all. But it was great. We were proud to sponsor the speakers for ReasonCon.
As long as the baby showed up, everybody was happy.
Right, everybody was excited about that. Nova is the most popular Nebo already, and he's only
absolutely
months around. So
he was the star, absolutely. But yeah, it's all those things working together, because if it was just me by myself, or me and Shane and Johnny, you know, we wouldn't be able to do hardly anything. But it's because there's people that are afraid to come out. When I first started my meetup here in Hickory about 4 years ago, we ended up with people who were afraid to come out to a Barnes & Noble at 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning because they were afraid of being seen. And is that me making that noise?
no, I don't think so.
Somebody's messaging me. I turn off my Facebook. So people were afraid to come out at 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning, and you know, you're sitting there going, well, who's going to see you? Because the person you're afraid of seeing you should be in church, so they've got something to explain too. But as time went on and we're actually changing the face of what an atheist is, and people learn that, hey, I actually do know an atheist. I didn't think I knew an atheist, so I'm having to change my whole perception of what an atheist is. That's allowing more people to be open. That's allowing more people to feel comfortable coming out to do these things, which makes us more productive as a charitable association anyway. So all these things work together. When you have something like ReasonCon, it's great for everybody to get together. Everybody pats themselves on the backs and says, hey, good to meet you. It's so nice to see somebody who thinks like me. It was amazing how many people we had at ReasonCon that had never been to any kind of atheist convention before, and they were just blown away by the camaraderie and the everybody's so nice, and just that people walked away from there feeling energized to be activists, and I thought that was just incredible.
Did the local media report on it at all?
Very little. We actually had a couple of pretty liberal reporters who wrote some pretty good articles, and they strategically wrote those articles kind of antagonistic to kind of get a little more attention for it, but it didn't work very well. We had the local NPR said they were going to try to send somebody out, but nobody showed up. We had a couple of street preachers showed up, but not really any media coverage, which is disappointing from a media standpoint, but it's good that people seem to be in the area kind of like, well, hey, they're being peaceful, they're having a conference, leave them alone type of thing. So
I got you. Yeah. I think that I think the media, I mean, if you've ever seen Fred Edwards talk about getting out into the media and kind of getting that boomerang effect where you get in the media so people talk about it, and then people come, and then that gets in the media. He gives an excellent speech about how to get your message out in the media.
Right.
Alix, I think that you've probably been an activist the longest, or been an out atheist, at least in the public eye, the longest. I know that when I first started going out and trying to do things and trying to be a part of the community, you were already someone that I really looked up to. I'm curious, how much has it changed as far as being in the South? Clearly, being, as you said, being black and being atheist is hard enough, but has being in the South become less of a struggle? Has it become an asset as an activist? Do you feel like it has changed a lot since you started? I mean, I feel like in this community, 6 months is an eternity.
Yeah, it has definitely changed over the years. There's a little bit less of a stigma with just being an atheist, which I like. If you take a look at the Pew Forum, one of the little glimmers of hope that there were two big ones. Well, okay, I'll do the first one. The first one was in the South, we're seeing less religiosity, which is a kind of a big shock. And when you take a look at the nuns and where you're seeing growth in the nuns, we're seeing anywhere between 4 and 12% increase depending on state, which is really big. So the South is becoming less religious. Now, you wouldn't think that, especially in places like Texas, with the people that we have in office and some of the bonehead moves that they make, but the reality is they don't necessarily mirror what their constituents look like. I know they don't. They definitely don't, mind. But there definitely has been a big shift. Now, it's interesting because the louder we get, the louder they have been in opposition, and that tends to be a little bit of a death thrall that I've seen in certain states or in certain municipalities where, you're getting really loud, you're becoming more visible, you're becoming more normal, and so, what people assume is the majority, the really squeaky religious wheels are going to jump up and say, me, 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 and they're going to exert their power And a lot of times they wind up chasing people away, which is what we've seen over the last few years. It hasn't been a lot of liberal, middle Christianity that is losing the ground. It has been the extremists that are pushing people out, and I tell the Catholic Church, keep doing exactly what you're doing. I keep saying exactly what you're doing. The Catholics have, they saw big losses. They're going to continue. Now, we saw a jump in evangelicals, but I think that's going to be an anomaly. And when the next Eras poll comes out in a couple of years, I think we're going to see a big shift from the evangelicals back towards secular. But in the South, in particular, it has gotten a lot better. When I started, it was very difficult finding these conferences, and now the regional conferences, the super regional conferences, the national conferences. I mean, I'm not even seeing media come out at the Texas conferences anymore because they just, it's the atheists, they're doing their thing. It's actually gotten harder to get campaign attention. So, it's almost at the point where we need a Dave Silverman type billboard to get any real attention because, hey, we know you exist, now what? And one of the things that has helped a whole lot in normalizing the idea of secularism is being out there and making it matter of fact. Normalizing atheism. Atheism for a long time has had more of a PR issue than anything else. We don't eat babies. People, I want to say people know that for the most part. But a few years ago, when I had a Mormon missionary knock at my door, and I was telling them, "Hey, I'm an atheist," and the reaction that they gave me, and I think I've told this story to a couple of people, was, "What denomination is that?" Well, I don't expect, I don't expect to hear that too much in the South anymore because we've been very, very visible. We've been very, very vocal. Our numbers are growing, absolutely. Our groups are getting much, much bigger, and I think it's been nothing but a positive curve. And again, with the Pew Forum, what I think is very, very enlightening, and it's one of my motivating pieces. Now, what we see with the ethnic and diverse community is absolute stagnant. In the black community, there's been no change. But when you take a look at the nuns number, it's not just the nuns that grew. It is actual people that call themselves secular, agnostic, and atheists that grew as well. We saw a 6-point jump. And so now when I have the arguments, even in the South, about, oh, well, you're colluding all of the nuns, those aren't really atheists. I was like, well, guess what? A big number is now saying they're atheists, and I expect that number to continue to grow. And guess what? It's also not just the millennials. So we're seeing a big shift, and not surprisingly, Christians are a little concerned about it. And, it's going to happen.
Speaking of the evangelical growth that we talked about, I went through and I looked at the 100 largest megachurches in America. Headed up by Joel Osteen. He's got the biggest one by quite a bit, actually. But most of them were in the South.
Yes.
Despite the fact that a lot of the population centers aren't in the South.
Yeah.
Most of the megachurches are. I'd open this up to any of you. What is it about your communities that lead to megachurch explosion?
A lot of it has to do with the fact that in the South you have a lot more rural areas, and in the rural areas you have a lot more superstition. You have a lot less education. You have a lot less importance on the honestly, you have a lot more practical people, and that lack of education and that lack of wanting to learn about sciences and things like that, that leads to a lack of critical thinking and a lack of ability to use reason versus using your emotions and going that way. Also, you have a lot of tradition in the rural areas. You have a lot of people who, I've been going to this same church because my father and his father and his father went to this church. Or I've been a Baptist all my life. My father was a Baptist. My grandfather was a Baptist. And that's where those really take root. And you'll go through these smaller towns of, say, 2,000 people, and you go just outside that town, and there's a 150,000 square foot church, that everybody in that town goes to, plus everybody around that town and the county around it go to that church, and that's how you get mega churches to form.
Yeah, it's a social
because
thing.
of the rural areas. Yeah, it's a social norm.
It's definitely a social thing, especially in our area. You go to church, and that's where your friends are, and that's where your association is. And I just think sometimes that grows. And what I find really interesting about it is you've got these pastors that are usually, to be a pastor, you're an outspoken person to begin with, obviously. And they'll stand up in their pulpits and they'll say things that 80% of their congregation doesn't agree with. But the congregation, these people that don't agree with him, lets it go because they know that agreeing or not stepping up and speaking against the pastor means that they can get to continue this social interaction that they have. So there's a value to that for them to be quiet. We often talk about the atheists in the pews. I mean, we've got a lot of people that admit to me straight up that they go to church only because that's what they've always done, and all of their friends are there, and they feel like that if they tried to change that they would lose a big part of their life. And the bottom line is they would, actually.
Yeah.
Well, there's also the use of fear. That fear of losing the social structure, or the fear of being pointed out and as being different. Because if you're different, you're outside the tribe, and that tribal mentality is very strong in the South and the rural areas.
It's a little over the top, actually, in several of the black congregations. I mean, you get pointed out for not giving enough money. I mean, you really do have people that know how much that you've put into the plate. They're tracking that. They're looking at that. They're tracking your tithing. And you get pointed out, and people will call you out. They have no issues calling you out for not being there, on Sunday. So, you can be in Fort Worth out with friends and family or anywhere in Dallas, and it's like, hey, brother so-and-so, I didn't see you in church this Sunday. I can expect to see you this week, right? And so you get all these kinds of, outside extracurricular pressures to be there. So it really does keep you in. So the fear of the church provides a lot, and it'd be great if we had wonderful secular alternatives for everything. We just don't, and I think it'd be hard to actually duplicate it. Sure as hell would be expensive, but really hard to duplicate that because people are just polarizing around, some idea. It may not be something that we agree with, but there's an ideology, and for us it's humanism. But not everyone's going to be a humanist, so they galvanize. They come around these ideologies, and they provide this wonderful interaction. There's networking. There's mate selection. There's all of that, and you have this massive tribe. And once you fall out of it, especially in the rural communities or really tight-knit communities like the black communities that tend to be very, very segregated, once you fall out, you become other, and you are on an island, all alone, deserted.
Yeah, you touched on one thing that it's perfectly, because I was actually going to move into this next. Last year at Shannon and I speaking engagements, the talk we gave was about the inconsistency between the community we have in the secular community and the community that the church has. We are, by and large, more affluent on average. We're more educated on average. We're more independent on average than the church. So the person that has independence and some affluence, even if a lot of us are working class, mostly working class, if you have education, affluence, and independence, it is a lot easier to leave faith. It's a lot easier to move from a community that supports you. Where the church community is, by and large, less educated, needs support financially, and needs the community, like you said, network opportunities, mate finding opportunities that just aren't there outside of the church. So what can we do to start to build that sort of network? I'm on the mindset that there are already avenues built within the most progressive of the religious groups. They're already doing things. They're already doing non-obligation oriented, undercurrent of Bible oriented charitable events. It's great that we can create them, but if we can use the network that's already created to try to expand what we can do for people, I think that's a good way to kind of get the ball rolling. But what do you guys think about how we can support people in the rural communities with how do we get that started out there? I mean, how do you guys do it in Hickory, Gene and Shane? How do you guys reach out to the underprivileged and the less educated in the community and give them an alternative for church? I mean, is that a possibility even at this point?
Yeah, I think ultimately it's an organic growth. It has to happen to where you draw people to you. You can't, with our movement, it doesn't make sense if we were out standing on the corners trying to preach to people. We've got to open the opportunity for people to participate and make sure people know about it. That's the biggest thing, and I'm sure Shane would agree with this. I get all of the time, the Hickory Humanist Alliance has been around for almost 4 years now, and I get, even today I got another email, I had no idea you guys were there. So, and that's the difficulty is just letting those people that need to know that you're there. And one of the things that will happen once they find you is they will start bringing the other people. So it grows from there. That's really all we can do, and we've done a pretty good job of doing that. It's just it's a slow process, and it just takes time.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like Gene said, it has to be very organic, and you have to let things happen. Sorry, my cat is about to run across the screen. But you can't sit here and just be like going out and atheist evangelizing, you know what I mean? You can't go out and, Jesus is, horrible, because then you're attacking people's belief systems, and people are so attached to that belief that it's a part of their identity. And so you have to provide things that people are interested in, and things like science conversations or movie events or cookouts and things like that, where you're drawing the people to you so you can just talk to them and they can just meet you and know who you are. That's one of the biggest problems that FACT has is the fact that we don't have a media presence other than what I do on Facebook and Twitter and things like that.
And I that's awesome. But I mean, the hard question remains, what about support? The support is the part that the church gives. Like it or not, if you have a member of a community that's part of a church, if they need low-cost childcare, if they need food, if they have struggling paying their rent. The church has this in place to help with that stuff. I don't expect an answer, but I mean that's clearly an issue.
Yeah, the church also has a built-in structure of taking people's money,
Right?
whether or not they have it to give or not. Where we have the ethical, in many cases, the ethical fortitude to say, we don't want you to give us your money, and then that hurts us in the other sense of things because we try to sell things to people or we try to provide services for a fee, whereas the church, says, hey, give us 10% of your money. Oh, and we've got childcare over here as well if you need it. Yeah. And we just can't do that.
I see what Mark's getting at.
Yeah.
And the answer, we have the desire to do those things too.
Mm-hmm.
We absolutely, as a community, I mean, some of the most giving people I know are the people that I've met in this community. There's people, I don't know any organizer of a group that doesn't put their own money in and sacrifice their time, an incredible amount of time, to do what they do, and it's just simply for that reason. Now, the churches are strong because they've been around for a long time, and they've got more people to do those things. It's not for a lack of desire to do those things. It's just a lack of manpower, so to speak, at this point. That's why we got to continue to grow.
They also have tax breaks.
Yeah, that's true. We actually been joined by Neil Carter, Godless and Dixie on Patheos. I forgot to mention Alix is also on Patheos. The Graffiti Wall, two great blogs. Check them both out. Neil, welcome from Mississippi.
Thank you.
We were just talking about, I talked about a lot of things. We talked about how the South has changed in the last few years as far as atheism, how it's getting a little bit easier, even though it's still hard. We talked about how the South holds the majority of megachurches, despite not holding the majority of population centers. And we also talked about the idea of how can the secular community start to provide the support systems that the churches do so well, financially, childcare, social, things like that. I welcome your comments on any of those subjects or just a bit about being an atheist in the South in general.
Thank you. Yeah, I've been listening in. I've been mopping, trying to catch up on chores. Thanks for letting me come in late. We're behind the curve, I think, where we are. I'm not sure why that is, but some of the other guys have had a lot more going on in their states. Maybe they started a lot earlier. And in our case, we're still trying to reach that critical mass where we have enough people who are willing to be openly identified as non-believers. And we've got a handful. We just started a Humanist Association chapter for the state last year, at the end of the year. And they've done a few things, like some blood drives and some school supply drives. But they're still pretty unknown to the area. I think about the most public thing that any of us have done at this point is stuff that's had my face on it, which is a start. At least it's something. And there's a lot of people, like maybe 560 that are in our atheist group, but that's just a Facebook group, and we can't get that many people together. So hopefully what's going to happen is over the next few years we'll actually have enough people to do things like put on events and to have projects that really make a difference in the area. But we're still really new at that at this point, and it's really just even hard to find any that are willing to be openly identified. We have maybe a dozen or so that are completely okay with it, be willing to show up in public and be a part of our group and be identified that way. So we've got a good ways to go.
Yeah, I think all of us would agree. Mississippi is South even by Southern standards.
Yep.
I mean, it's just you're doing a yeoman's work, Neil. We appreciate it.
It's like the Tate of the South.
I would like to hear your thoughts on what we were talking about why the South is such a boiling pot for megachurches in general.
Well, I know that socioeconomic factors have to have something to do with it, except that could be oversimplified because I grew up in the rich part of town, honestly. which compared to rich parts of other towns is nothing. You know, I mean, where I'm from, the rich people think they're really something, but actually they're puny compared to rich people from other places. But affluence doesn't make religiousness go away around here because it's so central to everybody's culture. And honestly, the really successful, financially successful people in our area are going to be very religiously plugged in because it's good for business. You know,
A lot of money in religion.
huh?
There's a lot of money in religion.
There is, and you know, say you're an insurance agent and you want to have a large clientele. First thing you do when you move to this area is you're going to join a church. You know, you're going to be very involved and plugged into everything because that's the best way to have a good business. All the successful business people are very well connected to churches here, so it's so central to the culture that it doesn't. You don't get less religious the richer you are. But speaking in terms of general cultures and geographic areas, the poorest parts of the country are the ones that are most religious. And it makes sense. You know, I think things like education levels, as they go down, so do critical thinking skills. The worse you feel your life is, the more likely you are to hope for the by and by someday, you know, when God's going to give you a mansion. And all those things factor in. I think if our socioeconomic level were raised, some of the hold of religion might start to go away. But unfortunately, we have these political systems in place that actually keep everybody in their different castes. You know, it's very difficult to do that.
That sentiment right there is a whole other show. The way politics and religion feed into each other, despite the separation of church and state that we work so hard for. John, you were going to make a comment about, I believe, how do we start to provide the support units that the church does? I mean, how do we start, you know, cracking that nut?
Yeah, that's a really difficult question, Mark. I think we've all been able to identify a lot of the problem with it, and a lot of it is hoping that we kind of grow our numbers and work together in order to get to a point where we can kind of unify on these common goals. One of the problems that I see, and we might have heard atheists or bringing atheists together, bringing secular individuals together is a lot like herding cats. They're spread out. Shane was talking about his issues with, you know, if they don't hear him on Facebook, then they're probably not going to find the event. Maybe they found it on a meetup or something like that. But the secular community is spread out across a wide variety of platforms, Facebook and Reddit, Yahoo, Google, Twitter, Meetup. I mean, all of these different websites, and they're all interacting. They're kind of forming their own small local internet communities with people that they get along with and with utilities that they like to share. But those aren't interacting, and those aren't kind of cross-pollinating very well. There's plenty of secular individuals in all parts of the country, but they diversify by geolocation first. They diversify even further by the mediums in which they interact. You're not going to bump into them at church. And if you don't go to a bar and they don't also go to a bar, then the likeliness of you guys connecting really depends on your technological hangout areas where you spend your time. So that's a project that we're working on right now, is unifying those things together so we can at least get a connection between everybody that's in the secular community right now, so that whether you're on one platform or another, you're not having to worry about, am I missing out on all the other people that are not using my particular social platform as an outlet for their secular activism or for getting support. I think that's the first component, is trying to bring everybody together and then find out how, once we've got everybody at the same place and we can have these open discussions, kind of group up on tasks that we deem important, then it's just doing it, you know, building up our numbers, bringing more people into working together and just going out and making a difference. I think it does start small. You're never going to grow something, you know, really huge right off the bat. It's not a church. You don't have 2,000 years of indoctrination to work with. You've got new people and new ideas, and you really have to just build that from the ground up, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you know what they say, the earth wasn't created in 7 days. So.
Yeah. So Johnny is saying we need like an atheist mingle, right? Christian mingle, atheist mingle. So
we only got we got 10 minutes left. I want to give everybody a chance to talk a little bit about what they have going on, where the listeners, because most of the people are not watching this live. We only have 2 live viewers, as opposed to when it goes on Aron's page, we have like 600 live viewers. But everybody will hear this on Spreaker.com/the ramen. We get about 10 to 15,000 downloads per episode. So, we'll start with you, Alex. What do you have going on currently, and where can people find you?
People can always find me on the graffiti wall on Pathos. Always challenging ideas and ideology. Where am I speaking next? I'll be at the atheist community down in Austin, the Austin atheist community, next month in June, and I think my speaking engagements are listed on Pathos as well.
Great. Gene and Shane, I'm going to lump you guys together. What does your guys' group have going on, and then anything you guys have separately, and where can we find your information?
Gene,
I'll go first. I've got the Hickory Humanist Alliance. You can find information about us if you're in the local area and want to be part of us at hickoryhumanist.org. I am also the host of a podcast that's slowly being produced called The Atheist Avengers. You can find about us at atheisavengers.com. And please, everyone, go to Reason NC Facebook page and webpage and like it and keep up with what's going to happen for next year's ReasonCon.
Yeah, and you can find Forsyth Area Critical Thinkers on meetup.com if you're in the Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Forsyth County area. You can also find us on Facebook if you just look up Forsyth Area Critical Thinkers. Currently, what we've got going on, this is our slow season. It starts to slow down once the summer hits. So what we're kind of doing is right now is just building up some infrastructure, getting ready for next year. But two of the big projects that I'm working on right now is getting ready for our group ready for Carolina Secular Conference. It's going to be in October, beginning of October. And then also I'm working with Amy Monsky on building up the Atheist Alliance of America Con in 2015, which is going to be going on in Atlanta, Georgia on October 15th through 18th. That's going to be a great speaking list on that one. I will try to work and help Johnny get into that speaking list, but no promises. I'm a lowly peon. I'm the sexy intern. So, but that's what we've got going on right now, and just trying to get more people interested in knowing about fact.
Okay, Johnny. Now is your time. Give us a 90 seconds about Secular Syndicate, what you plan it, what it is supposed to be, where it is now, and where it's heading.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try to lump it all together. You guys heard me just a moment ago speak about the idea of all of these different social platforms that are all spread out, and that's kind of our motto, our golden rule is bringing the secular community together. And that's what Secular Syndicate does. We've been working for the past several months on programming this website to interact and basically utilize all of the tools that you'd see from Facebook, Twitter, Meetup.com, Wiki. You can have your own. You can create your own blog on there. You don't have to be approved by an admin or anything like that. You just start a blog. You can do live shows on there. You can see the calendar of national events, local events. All of these things built into one place. That's Secular Syndicate. Keep an ear open for it. We're looking to launch in the next couple of weeks. There's just a couple final things that we're doing with tweaks for the performance of it. We don't know what the response will be like for when we launch that publicly, but we want to be ready for that. So if it gets to the point where the secular community really embraces this and likes the idea of being able to connect with secular individuals and get these tools available to them, things like Meetup, I think Meetup's $160 a year. You'll now have the full functionality of Meetup for the secular community at no charge. There's a lot of other tools that we've included in there as well, which we'll check that out. But just keep Secular Syndicate in your ear. So when you see it again or you hear Secular Syndicate's up, check it out. Do it. Go ahead, move forward, check it out. Go to secularsyndicate.com or secular.io. You can get a little teaser if you want to if you go there early. Was that under 90 seconds on Secular Syndicate?
No, but that's fine. I'm a big fan of it. We've been talking about it for a long time. Neil, tell us a little bit where everybody can find you again and where your upcoming speaking engagements.
Sure. Okay. Well, the easiest thing is just to type in godlessanddixie.com, and it'll take you to the Patheos page, and that's where I blog. A lot of it gets shared on the Recovering from Religion page because I also do some work for them. I'm going to start developing some of their small groups, and there are many already in place, but I'm going to take over the leadership of some of those small groups and trying to develop them. I'm also helping promote the Hotline project that they've got going, 184 I Doubt It. And so that's another thing we're doing, and I'm going to some of the conferences to help do those things and to also do some grunt work to lay the groundwork for promoting Reason Rally for next year. And as far as me personally, aside from that, I've got a number of things that have just popped up recently. Let's see, June 4th through 8th, I'll be in Chicago and Springfield. And June 13th and 14th, I'll be in Nashville. And let's see, July is kind of open. I'm still filling in some dates there. I'm also excited that I'm going to go to the West Coast in August. August 5th through a couple of days after that, I think I'm going to hit some places in the West Coast and see the San Jose Atheist group. So I got a lot going on this summer.
That's awesome. I love your stuff. I'm a big fan. As far as me, I think I've already talked about it. I'm emceeing the Pennsylvania Atheists and Freethinkers Conference in September. Speaking at the Carolina Secular Conference that Shane mentioned. Speaking down there with Shannon, and we have some other things on tap we've been asked to do, but those aren't firmed up yet. So Shannon will be out a lot more than me. She is the president, as you know, of Be Secular. She's the one that drives that train. She's the one that makes the decisions on where we go, and I just try to help as much as I can. Thanks everybody for coming on the show. I hope that there's some Southerners that hear this and are moved to maybe reach out to you or reach out to a group in their area, maybe start a group. That's what we always want, right? Everybody to start a group. Next episode of the Ra Men, Aron will be back. He's back from his Scandinavian tour. I believe we have a guest lined up, but I'm not sure who it is. So having it lined up really doesn't help, does it? I appreciate you guys all being here. Thank you for listening, and good night.